Okay, let's make a start. Welcome to the next webinar in the Atlassian Doing Agile Right series, Building a Great Agile Team. My name's Jimmy. I've been a developer on the Jira Agile team for about 2 years now. And as you might expect, Jira Agile does Agile. So I'd like to share with you some of the things that we've learned in our adventures with Agile about what makes a great Agile team, what makes an Agile team work. As you can see, the title's in the present tense, and that's deliberate. I'm not suggesting that we've built the perfect Agile team or that we've lighted on some ideal formula, but I think we have learned quite a lot along the way. So a little bit about my team then. My team is the result of the coming together last May of two quite disparate teams, the Jira Agile and the Jira Transformers, in a kind of a Brady Bunch-esque meeting of the minds, united by a common mission. Seeks to make a real difference by making it easy, fun, and rewarding to do something. We'll something else. Teams to moving right along then. So basically what I'm trying to say is my team's mission is top secret. And my team's name kind of alludes to my team mission. So let's just call them my team. The size of this newly formed team presented some challenges. How would we divide up the work? How would we handle the communication overhead of this big 20-person team? For example, no one really wanted to start every day with a 20-person stand-up. So, troubled by this initial question of team structure, Michael Tokes-Tokar, the Jira Agile dev lead, who you'll be meeting a bit later, was reminded of the Spotify video about how they do software engineering. And he noticed in particular the way they split their teams up into sub-teams, or squads as they were called. And he thought perhaps this could work for us. And thus were born the squads, the basic building blocks of our team. So allow me to introduce the Jira Agile squads. We have Jimi's Jesters, my squad, Chris's Cobras, Slavek's Sirens, Michael's Manatees, and Dave's Devils. Now the names were a bit silly, but they formed a good foundation for our squad. And they also form a good hook to relate the different principles that I'm going to be talking about as far as building a great Agile team is concerned. Chris's Cobras relates to the principle of employing fast, targeted strikes through squads. Dave's Devils is about automating the details. Jimi's Jesters is about juggling your schedule. Slavek's Sirens relates to good communication, getting the message out there. And Michael's Manatees is about maintaining humanity. In other words, forming and preserving a good team culture. Oh, and there's one other floating squad that I failed to mention, Bug Fix Duty, which just serves to highlight that there will be bugs in any product, and indeed in any process. And so along the way I'll call out some things that we're still figuring out. I should stress as well that what I'm going to talk about is just a snapshot of our team at a particular point in time. And we're always iterating, we're always trying new things. And so some of the specifics I'll talk about here will change, or indeed have already changed. But the key thing is the principles. So straight on to Cobras then. So the Cobra's mascot represents the concept of strike forces or squads or micro teams, whatever you'd like to call them. So employ fast targeted strikes. Well, what makes our squads fast? Firstly, they're lightweight. Spotify has squads of around 8, whereas ours are more like 3 to 4 people. Focused on a specific stream of work, but with the freedom to move on to something quite different once we're done with that stream of work, to keep us from getting bored. So a team of 4 makes it pretty easy to keep in sync because of the reduced communication overhead. So we move quickly. We don't need to worry about what 19 other people are doing, only what about 3 other people are doing. Every squad has a captain who collaborates and synchronizes with the other captains to make sure that we're all still moving in the same direction and that we're not stepping on each other's toes. Another thing that helps us move fast is permanent membership to our squads. We're not done as a squad when our feature's done. Instead, we just latch our collective fangs onto the next theme, so to speak. New teams tend to take a while to find their stride. You've got your storming and norming and forming phases, as they're called. But when we first formed, we paid that overhead, so now we're reaping the benefits of this rapport we've built, as we hopefully continue to strengthen it. And there's just a picture of what one of our squad areas would look like. As you can see, we're co-located, and so the communication flows freely within the squad. So by and large, we really do see the benefits of reduced communication overhead, faster dev speed, and rapport that come from splitting our team up this way into squads. But as I said, there will be bugs, there are some challenges. One problem we've faced has been division of labour issues, or running out of theme, so to speak. So when we're getting near the end of a stream of work, sometimes all that's left to do, for example, is back-end work. That's a problem for purely front-end developers in the squad. You could loan that developer out to a squad with more front-end work, or you might even insist they start to generalise their skills. But neither of these approaches is perfect. So this solution to the division of labour is still an issue we're puzzling over. Now the issue is a little too lightweight. What happens when, due to personnel matters beyond our control, a member leaves the squad? Of course this happens to any team, but I think a squad being so small feels the impact more keenly. Obviously there's only so much you can do about people leaving or moving teams. You can try to hire the right people, you can do your best to foster a great team culture so people don't want to leave, but some movement in people will be inevitable. I think also that as well as building rapport, we found that as time goes on, squads get better and better at onboarding new members with less impact to their productivity as well. Again, it's just a matter of practice. So, on to Dave's devils then. The old saying goes that the devil's in the details, meaning that attention to detail can really save your hide, particularly when you're talking about important questions and processes like, when's the right time to merge to master? Or what's the correct and standard way to release a new version of the product? That sort of thing. And many other examples as well. So following these rules is really important for the quality of your product, but no one wants to be tied up enforcing these rules when there's code to write, right? Thankfully, there are apps for that. There are all kinds of apps which will help automate, process, and enforce the rules for you. Obviously, I'm an Atlassian. These are the kind of tools we make and use ourselves. And so I'll be giving you an example specific to the Atlassian stack. But do substitute your product of choice in here. So to demonstrate, here's a day in the life of a developer in Jimi's Jesters. Oh no! Looks like some code we wrote has completely broken the Jira Agile board. Obviously we should get onto this as a matter of priority. Now, the fix looks pretty trivial. It would be simple enough just to code up the fix and push it straight to master like nothing ever happened, right? Well, wrong. We have a saying in our Agile team, as in many others, that master's golden, meaning only fully tested code which is ready to deploy at the drop of a hat should be on master. And so, rather than making sure no one pushes straight to master, we allow Stash, our Git server, to do that for us by setting up Stash branch permissions. You'll notice along the way I've popped some tiny URLs in these little callouts. So if you are specifically interested in how to set up the Atlassian tools to automate this kind of thing, feel free to follow those for more instructions. So, pushing straight to master is a no-no. The correct way to do it, in Jira for example, is to just click this Create Branch button. So, we accept these sensible defaults that Stash provides us. Check that the build is actually green on master so that we don't branch from a broken build. And we're ready to get to work. So we clone our branch locally in source tree with a single click. Get to work coding up a fix. And then with another single click, we can create our pull request. Once our changes have been approved by QA, of course. Oh, what's this? Looks like we can't merge at the moment. It's not that there's going to be a merge conflict, it's just that stash, for example, can be set up to prevent you from merging before you have a certain number of approvals, or if the builds are red, for example. Now, in our haste to get the change merged into master, we've neglected the issue itself on the Jira Agile board. But thanks to some new Jira and Stash integration features, Stash will take care of transitioning the issue for us. It knows that when you've created a branch, the issue must be in progress, and that when you've merged to master, the issue is done. So it updates the status accordingly. Then we use our build server, Bamboo, to check that master's still green, and then with the click of a button, deploy this fix. Atlassian tools save the day. Now, does that all sound a bit dreamy and ideal? Just a little? Well, there will be bugs. Sometimes over-eager apps can lead to mishaps. In the race to automate everything, you need to be careful not to over-automate, ending up with tools that start to get in the way rather than reducing friction. In our case, we experimented with a Stash Auto Unapprove plugin that would reset all reviewers' approvals whenever we pushed a new change. The idea was a sound one, to ensure that no big changes got snuck in after approvals were done. But in practice, it left developers afraid to even push minor reformats and fixes, for fear of having to chase up all the reapprovals. We also had some trouble getting auto transition to behave as we expected when the feature was in the early stages of development, and we were the guinea pigs. So, our answer has been to find a balance between enough automation and too much, and to trust people to do the right thing when the right thing's obvious. For example, if you're going to add a big change to a pull request after it's been reviewed, you should really get that big change reviewed and approved independently. Now, sometimes automation can be painful by virtue of the scale of the operation and the number of moving parts. We feel this pain the most when it comes to continuous integration. We're steadily chipping away at the rough edges though, not only my team but all of Jira. On the other hand, there may be a particular automation feature that you feel is missing from your product of choice. In this case, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and fill the gaps yourself. In our case, Bamboo, our build server, we felt could really do with one consolidated view for branch development, where you could select a specific repository and branch, see all the builds that are currently running against that branch, and all the unassigned builds for the repository, allowing you to add them with one click, easily restart failed builds, and just keep an eye on things from a branch point of view. We've shared that on the marketplace under Atlassian Labs, so head along to that URL if you use Bamboo and you'd be interested in that. So now it's my squad mascot's turn for some advice on how to juggle your schedule like a jester. Scheduling is really about questions like, what are we doing now? What are we doing next? And when's this thing actually going to get done? Jira Agile has proven indispensable in helping us lift our eyes off what our hands are doing and up to the flaming swords and chainsaws we have in flight, just like any good jester needs to do. So the easiest question first then, what are we doing now? And the answer is right there in our rapid board. We have just one rapid board set up for all our team sprints. They start and end at the same time. But we can drill down from this bird's eye perspective to an individual team's work using these quick filters that we've set up. It's quite a simple system. We just label issues based on what squads they belong to, and then we filter based on that label. I think this is one advantage of having a digital rather than a physical task board, is being able to quickly shuffle the data around. Fair enough, but what are we doing next then? where our synchronized sprints are kicked off by back-to-back planning. So, as I said, just like a 20-person stand-up, a 20-person planning meeting for 5 distinct squads would soon get pretty tiresome with everybody chiming in. So instead, how we do it is we have the squads come in one by one, back to back, but QA, product managers, and lead developers are there from start to finish. That way they can flag any conflicts or dependencies, while leaving more time for the individual squads to get on with things. To make sure the backlog items are still relevant when it comes time to estimate and plan them, management do something we call a board walk each fortnight, which is basically just backlog grooming. Team leads and PMs take the principal product manager through the upcoming stories to make sure there's nothing missing or stale, to make sure that things are correctly prioritized as well. But we're all about autonomy and empowerment, so anybody can add a story if it's needed. And if we know a story doesn't apply anymore, we're empowered to just close it as redundant. So I saved the tricky one until last. When will we be done? So if you do your work by epic and you put estimates on your stories, then something like Jira Agile's epic burn down chart can help you get a feel for how much work might be left. Or you might be using a physical card wall and chart and be drawing this burn down chart yourself. The same principle applies. Sometimes we use this chart, but sometimes we just get a feel by looking at the total stories completed in the last 2 sprints. So one way to get these estimates is what I call inverted planning poker. So instead of taking blind bids for each story until there's consensus, we have the stories written out on cards and we drag them into piles by relative size. We find this helps get a better feel for how the size of the different stories relate to each other. But it really only works if everybody's willing to speak up, which is certainly true of my team. Nowadays, we have quite a good feel for the size of stories, so we often even forego this inverted planning poker. But even the most skillful jugglers can sometimes drop the ball. Unnecessary work that's accurately estimated is still a waste, and sometimes our squads discover too late that work was unnecessary because we missed a change in direction. So at Atlassian we find it helpful to ask ourselves this question: what's my boss worried about? If we can keep our boss's priorities in mind, we're better equipped to judge what work is necessary or not. If we're not sure, that's a good cue to approach our very approachable product or line manager for a conversation about what's next. And despite our best efforts, it's well known and understood that estimating is really hard. You're probably familiar with Hofstadter's law. It always takes longer than expected, even when you take into account Hofstadter's law. So rather than trying to get the perfect estimate, which is a bit of a pipe dream, we plan and optimize for slippages and uncertain timelines. Incremental delivery and feature toggles are 2 tools that help us do this. So incremental delivery is a well-tested and well-accepted way to reduce the risk of big releases by adding features piece by piece. We supplement this approach with feature toggles, which is a way to keep incomplete features hidden, while still getting the benefit of merging and releasing frequently. When we think we're done, our infrastructure, which we call dark feature infrastructure, even allows us to turn the feature on for just a subset of users and collect feedback or usage statistics from them before the feature goes prime time. So, Slavic sirens then. Sirens are the masters of effective communication. As soon as you hear a siren, the takeaway is obvious. Get out of there or you're going to have a bad time. So my team likewise strives to get the message across without getting bogged down in too many meetings. It's important that we recognise what toes might be stepped on and maintain a sense of how we're doing as a team. And so we try to surface the important things and share our knowledge through cross-pollination. So synchronised sprints and back-to-back planning help keep things synchronised between squads, as we've discussed. But we risk blocking other teams as well if we don't tread carefully. So to sound the siren about these kind of cross-team blockages, we use wallboards as information radiators. Here's an example of our one. You can see here it's showing builds that we've broken, or when the next release train leaves, and what plugins of our versions are deployed in what environments. And in our squad's haste to finish its own work, sometimes we can lose track of other squads. So once a week we have a stand-up of just squad captains and other interested squad members to keep each other updated. So there's 3 more things I want to say about keeping each other in the loop at this point, and all 3 of those things are pull requests. If you haven't tried pull requests or some other kind of code review, I'd strongly recommend it. I think they're really one of the most valuable communication, keeping each other honest tools that we have. So changes that clash with your changes, APIs that don't fit your needs, code that doesn't take all the edge cases into account and has potential bugs lurking in it. All of these, I find, tend to be exposed in the harsh light of pull requests. They don't catch everything, but they surely improve the quality of our code, and we learn from each other and challenge each other along the way. I think they're definitely worth the extra time they take to review one another's code. And speaking of challenging each other, I'd like to share another incident of how one team member took the initiative to improve things. Until recently, Jira Agile's continuous integration was in a pretty bad way. Many of our tests would fail at random, meaning deployments and merges got blocked by false negatives. The Transformers, one incoming team that formed this new team of ours, really weren't impressed, and Sergio less so than most. So he wrote a blog post proposing a strict new policy of treating unreliable tests as blockers, and appointing a build overlord to see that tests were swiftly improved or deleted. Now the Jira Agile team, being themselves quite irritated at the state of the builds, agreed, and we went about implementing Sergio's plans. And the builds, I would say, are now much better. They're still not perfect. So the general principle is we encourage cross-pollination. If somebody brings a new idea or tool to the table, our answer is almost always, let's give it a try and see how it works. So separate to this question of what are we doing is how are we doing as a team. So yeah, I'm talking about retrospectives. I think our first unspoken rule about retros is you don't have to wait for the retro. If something's great, or conversely, if something needs to be fixed, we can call it out in the HipChat room or in a Confluence blog post. But we still have these retrospectives because it's good to set aside time to focus on things about our team that we really want to celebrate. We found the ingredients for retrospective needs to achieve its purposes are, firstly, some kind of overall rating. We tend to just each give a rating out of 10, and then we average the result to get a feel for the morale in general. Once that's established, we brainstorm some positives and negatives from the sprint. Everybody contributes, even if it means there are some duplicates. But what good is complaining if you're not going to do something about it? So we take the highest voted negatives and turn them into action items. And we assign those action items to a key volunteer to execute. So retrospectives may sometimes not seem like real work. There are probably other things competing for your time. But the last key ingredient of a successful retrospective is your full attention. Actually listening to the rest of the team and focusing on making things better will help make a team something that you love being a part of. But communication is tricky too. Our squads seem to be humming along pretty nicely now, but there are still toes in other teams to tread on, and occasionally we clash. To minimise this problem, we try to be proactive and watch our steps, so to speak. A good example of this for us is the Atlassian Connect team. So we knew that they'd need to integrate with a new feature we were building. So we approached them for some input on how it should work, rather than just building it, waiting for them to complain when they discovered what we'd done wrong. And cross-pollination is all well and good, but what about when it becomes deliberation and debate with with point and counterpoint being traded in pull requests, posted from opposite side of the globe sometimes? That kind of deliberation can leave people feeling sluggish and irritated, not unlike actual polling does to me. So as it turns out, the solution to this problem has the same root as the problem. People voicing their concerns. one of our team, who fell victim to one such debate, suggested some ground rules for pull request discussions, like a mandatory face-to-face resolution of disputes, and clear distinction of nice-to-haves from must-haves in the comments. So time zone mismatch is still a challenge, but I think we're more careful now about picking our battles. Well, that leads us into our final principle: maintain the humanity. So the rapport and culture that the team builds and works within is surely one of the most important things about the team. We couldn't do any work without our tools, but we wouldn't care without our culture. So here are some things that I think make our team and company culture special. Firstly, we listen up. If someone has advice or a suggestion about how to do things better, we hear them out. And this applies to constructive feedback as well. There's no room for ego in our squads. If we're upset with something another squad or team has done, we'll first try and understand why they've done it, trusting that, like us, they're capable and trying their best. There's probably a good reason they did what they did. If there's a disagreement, we prefer to face up and talk it over in person, or over hip chat if we're not in the same office. Debates on a blog post or pull request tend to get drawn out as point and counterpoint are typed up, and they tend to come across as more heated than a civil face-to-face chat. Even if it's not a debate, more of a discussion on how to proceed, the same principle applies: facing up. When somebody new joins the team, we pair up. We find that there's no better way to transfer skills and tribal knowledge than a bit of a pairing session, generally for at least a week or so. It does tie up a more experienced dev for a little while, but for our team, it more than pays for itself in the skill and knowledge transfer stakes. And lastly, we play up now and then, which is really just me paraphrasing the Atlassian wide value of play as a team. So you don't have to be best friends with your squad or your team, but if you're someone who goes for coffee, try and synchronize those coffee runs. Have the odd team lunch to celebrate a milestone, or just because eating at your desk is a drag. And try to find something that's distinctly your team's. For us, it's this: when we give demos of our work on a Friday afternoon, the conclusion of every demo, no matter how trivial, must be greeted with rapturous and extended applause that echoes throughout the whole floor. So there are those principles one more time. I hope that you found something that you'd like to try, and more generally, I hope that you've been inspired to just keep trying out new approaches. See what works, see what doesn't. Call out the problems or the pain points in your process as you continue on this road to the perfect agile team, and see these setbacks as opportunities to get better. Well, thanks very much for listening. I hope that you've got some questions for me about building this great agile team. And please welcome Michael Togar.